Hey there, Amplifiers. I've hoped you've whet your appetite for learning something that just about impacts everyone here. Well, maybe everything impacts everyone here. We're talking today about how you can get the taste for improving your finances. We've all been to restaurants. We've all seen some of them come up to be franchises. We've all seen some ones that maybe we really love fail. And our guest today is really an expert when it comes to helping the restaurants not be one of the statistics, but help them to succeed, to thrive, and achieve the American dream. She's a CEO and founder of Spark Business Consulting and the author of Profit First for Restaurants and the professor of hospitality at Boston University. Welcome to Growth Amplifiers, Kasey Anton.
Why, thank you. Thank you so much for the great introduction.
Thank you for the opportunity to get that introduction just right. I appreciate that because you are making an impact. There's so many great, amazing restaurants out there, and a lot of them who were starting their businesses had a passion. They knew they wanted to create great experiences. They knew what they had great food to share, but they didn't know the business of being in business. Mm-hmm. And I would love for you to share kind of your backstory on how you got to be to where you are today.
Yeah. Okay. Great lead up. So I could talk forever about this, but the first half of my life I spent in restaurants. That's all I ever wanted to do. It was not in my family at all. I just fell in love at the age of 5 or 6 with celebration, joy, eating out, which usually the two were very connected for me as a kid. So I loved being around restaurants. My parents did not want me to go to a hospitality or a culinary school. They thought the degree was too narrow. So I didn't. I went and got a broad degree in communications and business. But then when I graduated from college, I went right into the restaurant industry because it was just my passion. I thought it was my calling. And I spent, the first half of my life working in all kinds of restaurants in every single position in a restaurant, culminating and eventually owning and operating a couple of the best restaurants in Boston. So that's where my background comes from. But a new chapter for me, I got married and had my first child, and being in the restaurant industry is difficult for that. It's demanding. It's 6-7 days a week. It's 10-12 hour days. It's very late nights, especially in the fine dining kind of late night restaurants that I was involved in. And it was time to sell anyway. So my partners and I were diverging. I sold. I thought I'd be a stay-at-home mom. That lasted about 4 seconds. I am just not made for that. That is the hardest job in the world, and I could not do it. So I ended up figuring, well, what can I do now, right? Because I couldn't go back into the restaurant industry, not in the way I had been in it, having an infant at home. That was my whole skill set. So I'm thinking, what else can I do? So as it turned out, when I was really thinking about, what other skills did I gain in the last 25 years being in restaurants, I got really good at the numbers. I got really good at the financials, like creating them, studying them, learning from them, because I had to. Because the last half of my restaurant life, we struggled, as most restaurants do, but we really struggled. And I had to learn how to take $1 that came in and turn it into 10 just to keep the lights on. So I got really, really good at some crafty math and some financials. And that was kind of a skill set that I learned. I knew QuickBooks inside and out because I was always trying to figure out, how do I stretch this dollar? So I took that skill set and I said, maybe I can help some other small restaurants, like with their accounting. And that took off pretty well. And then they said, hey, can you help me, with my girlfriend who's an interior designer, my husband's a general contractor. I'm like, well, let me go see if 2 + 2 = 4 over there in their neighborhoods. And it does. So that's how I grew Spark Business Consulting. It was just like numbers are numbers no matter where you are. And so it was a business model with the aim to be profitable. But so we work with many industries here at Spark. I've had this business for almost 18 years now. We have well over 250 clients. I have a staff of 10 amazing bookkeepers and accountants. But our main division is restaurants because, that's just the passion. So about 60% of our clients are restaurants, and we help them with everything. Every part of it. But the main draw, of course, is to be profitable, because you cannot survive, let alone thrive, without profit.
That is quite the journey, and really cool. You find something that you have a unique gift at, and then you're sharing that with others so that they can have that dream, that experience for themselves. Are you familiar with the show Restaurant Impossible?
Mm-hmm.
I would would think maybe so, but I didn't want to make an assumption.
Yeah.
I remember watching that show and I thought it was interesting just how many restaurants they think they're doing the right thing, but sometimes their numbers are off and they could be selling something that's losing them money on a regular
Oh, yeah.
basis and they wouldn't know. What are
Yeah.
the biggest challenges that you see when you're connecting with restaurants or other businesses when it comes to their finances that they don't know they don't know?
Yeah, you're speaking to exactly what we live and breathe here, that we see every single day. And we're talking to new restaurants every single day, and it never gets old and it never goes away. So I would say that, when I talk about business model, and it is
Mhm.
so important, and I was looking through some of your and listening to some of your other episodes here, Kenny, and I notice a lot of people do talk about business model, but really, just to make sure the audience understands, is that it's just your business has to be set up in a way that it makes money. Right. So that's the model. It's if you're going to sell a burger and fries for $10, you have to know exactly what that costs you. Not only in the ground beef, the bun, the doily, the plate, the whatever, right? The napkin, the salt and pepper, everything. Not only do you need to know that, but then you also need to know what it costs you for the overhead, the occupancy, your insurance. Like, you really need to understand how that model breaks down, so that every time you sell a burger and fries, you're actually going to make a profit. Even if it's just 50 cents or a dollar, whatever it is, there has to be a profit. So I'd say the number one thing that we find is no restaurant gets as granular as they need to simply on their menu costing.
Mm.
And I think that it's a problem. It's a big problem. And I think the reason why they don't is because they feel like, oh, I got to count every grain of salt that go, that literally, I think they get very literal on that. And no, and I talk about this throughout the book, and the tools that we have that go with the book, is that, just assign a value, because unless you got that salt and pepper for free every day, there's a value to it. So I don't care what it is, 5, 10, 20, 30, well, you decide. Assign a value to it. And so as long as I can get people to say, listen, we just got to have a ballpark here, because a ballpark's better than no park at all. And I think most of the restaurants struggle because there's no park. They're like, well, that's ridiculous. I don't need to cost out my ketchup. And then they do nothing. So one of the case studies in the book, and I think I have 6 case studies throughout there, was actually a burger shack. I'm a big burger fan. That's probably why I brought it up. But this is a true story of one that came to us years ago, and they were busy. There was always money kind of coming in, more going out than coming in, and they didn't really figure out what was going on. They were just like, well, there's money coming in, and I grab it, and then I throw it at whoever's yelling the loudest, and then there's more money, and then I throw it, like without really a rhyme or reason, thinking that someday, the dust is going to settle and maybe there'll be money there. Like, that's not a business model, but it's a common one that I see. So when we actually costed out their number one seller, which was I think a cheeseburger and fries at this place, we actually found that they were losing money every single time they sold one. They lost money. So even though it was the number one seller, it made more sense to stop selling it than to sell any at all, because it was always a loss. And so that's common. So that's number one, is understanding what your menu cost is, and making sure the pricing's right, the portion's right, all of that, and then it's set up to make money. I would also say the second thing would probably be understanding debt service, because yeah, that's a big one. A lot of restaurants need a loan, a line of credit, maybe use some credit cards at some point or another. There's a lot of type of unfavorable loan companies out there that are eagerly will give money to restaurants to take a portion of every single deposit that comes in to pay them back at a very high interest rate. So it makes it easy for restaurants to get money, and they usually feel like they're going to high five each other when they get approved for a new loan. But the thing is, the loan, debt is not your friend. So getting restaurateurs to understand that debt can be needed, and there's a reason, and there's a way for it to have it, but you have to understand what it means, and you have to have a plan for it, and you certainly have to have a plan on how you're going to pay it back. So that's another area we see people getting a lot of trouble with, taking on way more debt than they could ever pay back.
So both of those topics can be very vast and can create a list so huge that people can be overwhelmed, and they say, man, I'm just going to continue selling burgers. I don't have time to do those things. But you know this. You know this because you're in your book, Profit First for Restaurants. You've got those case studies. You give best practices. How do you help people that are not helping themselves have that aha moment and help them realize that they need to start making some progress and start moving forward some new ideas, start taking some new actions so they can achieve new results? How do you help people do that if they're a little bit resistant or overwhelmed at the magnitude of the things that they may eventually need to get towards?
Well, I think a couple of different ways. I'd like to think anyway. I'd say the low hanging fruit, the easiest one is all the feedback that I've gotten from the book from around the world, actually, which has been amazing. People messaging, going through Instagram or whatnot, and just the stories. Not only my entire story of owning the restaurants that I own and the ups and downs of that is weaved throughout the book, but then other restaurateur stories and the case studies and the way that those are explained. I think that was a lot of big aha moments where the readers and audience could connect with that, see themselves in those stories and be like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. And oh, that's why that happened. So I think that those were the big aha moments there. But I'd say overall, if somebody's listening, right, and they'll let me tell them like what Profit First for restaurants is. It is a cash management system. It's very simple. We use bank accounts to leverage your behavior of bank balance accounting, looking at the balance in your checking account and making decisions based on that, right? It's not the right way to do it, but if you're going to do it, let's separate that money into multiple accounts and give every dollar a job. And when I can show them the visual, and I actually have created visuals, mock online banking screens with what I'm talking about, and I can show them that and say, so normally you might be looking at, let's say, 50 grand in your one big bank account. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I can make rent and payroll. And before you know it, the money's gone. Then you're wondering like, geez, that went fast. All right, well, where's Saturday night coming? I need more money. It's the wrong way to run your business. The way we've all run it, it's the wrong way. So when we can take that 50,000 and actually allocate it to different accounts that have different names, payroll, cost of goods, occupancy, things like that, then it really leverages that habit of logging in, looking at that online banking screen and be like, okay, all right, so I've got, $10,000 in payroll. Is that enough to cover my payroll? Yep. Okay. I've got 12, 15,000 in my cost of goods. Can I pay my vendors? What's due? That's a little bit of an aha, but what's even more so, and what I love the most about this system is that in that example, if they allocate, say, 30% to their payroll account because they're running a 30% labor payroll, which is pretty common, right? And then they log into ADP or Paychex or whoever they're using, Gusto, for their payroll, and they show that they actually owe 33,000. So they've got 30,000, let's say, allocated for payroll, but they owe 33. That's the come to Jesus aha moment. What are you going to do? Because you can't short payroll, right? You can't. So you need to find 3,000. Where are you going to take it from? Are you going to take it from your cost, your vendor account and not pay your food or beverage vendors? They're not going to be real happy with you. Are you going to take it from your occupancy and not pay your rent or your utilities? That's not a good idea either. So now you get to make a conscious decision of where you need to pull money from in order to cover the payroll that you can visually see is too high. So everything comes into like laser focus, Kenny, right? So now you immediately know, holy cow, my payroll's too high. I need to adjust the schedule. I need to figure out what's wrong. I need to get it down right immediately. And now it's like, okay, well, do I have profit set aside? Am I not going to pay myself? Oh, like what am I? And it's a horrible decision to make, but one you have to make. And it really kind of just transforms where your intention is behind how you're running your business immediately. Because the other end of that is if you don't do this system and you're using one big bank account and you don't really see the issue, then you're just waiting until your books are closed for the month, right? And then maybe, they're reconciled. And then maybe you have a chance to sit down with your bookkeeper or your accountant, your office person, and then you look at it. And then maybe it'll show you that you ran a 33% food payroll cost, maybe. But by then, you're 4 or 5, 6 months removed from when you actually could have done something about it, which was the week of, right? So it just transforms your business just in that simple task of allocating your money and giving every dollar a job.
So you mentioned something in there.
Yeah.
A lot of restaurateurs, they already probably have a bookkeeper or an accountant. Maybe they have a CPA and they think, I've got this stuff covered. I'm good to go. How can you help them who maybe not realize that they have the blind spots and untapped opportunities? How can you help them, or how do you help them see that there's probably more that meets the eye? There's probably a lot of untapped opportunity that would be worth looking into.
Wow, that's a great question. That's a great question. So Here's the thing. Here's the thing. What we do here at Spark, we do something called a deep dive call for any prospects or leads that might come in, and they pay for the call. But what they get on this call is an hour of not only conversations all about them, where they want to go, what they want to do, what they love, blah blah blah. We also do a diagnostic review. So let's just take that for an example. If we had a restaurant come to us, they book a deep dive, we do all that, right, and then we drive into their books, and we see them doing great. We see the books are perfect. They're making 40% profit. They're paying them. If they're doing all the things, I'm going to be like, hell, I'm going to take your class. Like this, where's your book? Like, this is amazing. Great job. This and awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. And you should teach a class. This is what I would say to them. I have never, ever, ever been in that circumstance. And I've looked at and talked to thousands of restaurants at this point. So here's the thing. If they're not sure, if they're not sure that their financials are perfect, which means that they really should understand the balance sheet, because it is the spine, it is the backbone of your entire company. So make sure you understand that. If you don't, you gotta meet with a professional that knows that, and then look at your P&L and make sure it makes perfect sense to you, and that they tie together. And then take a glance over at your statement of cash flows. If all of that, if you're like, yeah, I could take a final exam and get an A+, you're good to go. That just never happens. And a good example of this is we actually had a deep dive call just on Friday with the gentleman who owns a small restaurant, who believed that he's like, well, I'm doing well. I'm doing it myself. I'm doing good. Like, I think I'm doing fine. I think I'm doing good. And we're like, okay. We didn't actually look at his financials at this point. We're like, okay, well, good, good for you. He's like, I might need help, but you guys charge this much. He was just saying for like this integration. He goes, it was so easy. I don't understand why you charge that. And we're like, well, it's not easy. And this was a square, the point of sale square with a QuickBooks integration. And we're thinking it's not easy. And if he thinks it's easy, I think there's something wrong. So that's like, all right, so we're going to dive into your books right now and take a look. He's like, all right, good. No, yeah, no problem. So we dive in there. He had tripled his income by doing the integration wrong, because most people do it wrong. It actually requires a lot of mapping. Whenever you integrate like another system, like a point of sale with QuickBooks or an accounting software, it's usually not a on switch and you're done. There's a lot of things that have to happen that makes it correct. And most people don't know that. This gentleman, chef by nature, didn't. And so he was presenting, and he has investors, and he was presenting financials to investors that showed 3 times the income that actually it was going on, and paying them like they're, I wasn't sure if it was profit distributions or like an investment payback based on these monies, and wondering why there was never any money left in his account, because his financials were completely wrong, but he was just looking at them. So like, that's the dangers of it. I would definitely recommend for anyone to make sure if you're not an expert yourself, which you can be, it's just very rare that we see that. I'd love to see it if I could, to work with somebody that, and understand you. There should be no question. There's no really gray area when it comes to looking at your balance sheet, your profit and loss, and your statement of cash flows. That's real money. Every penny is tied to every account, every loan, every checking, every savings that you have. And it should all tell a story. One story, the right story.
I believe that is really true, because as an optimization specialist myself, my best clients don't know what they don't know. They don't know they have the gaps. They don't know how they have the blind spots. They're doing good already. So there's a lot of restaurants and restaurateurs that maybe they think that, hey, I've got that bookkeeper. They have that account, but there could be things that they're missing. So I'm always a big fan of getting a second opinion, getting someone just to make sure, because it never hurts just to get someone to look over to make sure you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, of course.
You have everything aligned. You're not missing something.
Yep.
Because small hinges swing big doors, and that goes both ways. So sometimes just a little adjustment can make your growth goals improved, or sometimes a little adjustment can reduce the big tanking costs in your bottom line that you just can't seem to fix. And without a fresh perspective, sometimes you're just not going to know. So if people are tuned in and they're like, wow, this woman really knows what she's talking about, she's definitely experienced, definitely savvy, where could they go if they're a restaurateur? Or maybe, if they have a friend who owns a restaurant. There's so many different people who have restaurants. You're bound to know someone who owns a restaurant.
Yeah.
And you could share, hey, there is this book, Profit First, for restaurants. It's definitely something could be a great gift for the upcoming holiday season. But where could they go, and what should they do if they're trying to help either themselves or someone they know?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the first thing I would say is honestly, I'd get the book. It's on Amazon or wherever you buy books. It's available everywhere. It's available in a ton of different countries as well, but I'm assuming the audience is mostly in the US. So Profit First for Restaurants by Kasey Anton. I would do, and it's always, Amazon always puts it on sale. Like we have no control over that. Amazon like runs everything, right? So it's always on sale. I would absolutely, and it's on Audible as well, and I read it. So, some people seem to like that. I guess it depends. Now you hear my voice, you'd know if it would annoy you or not. But I would absolutely give them that. It's an inexpensive gift to give, and because I am a former restaurateur and I've been in that business for so long, I speak restaurant, and I feel like the way I wrote it took me almost 2 years to write it. I think that it's kind of a breath of fresh air for restaurateur, because they're like, oh my God, she gets me. She speaks my language. I get it. So I think that they people who normally don't even like to read will read it and be like, oh my God, this is a great book. And I love that I have so many, and you can read the feedback on Amazon on the reviews for that reason. So that's number one. And if they get the book or download the book and they're into it, the book will tell you exactly how to reach me, which you can do it through profitfirst4restaurants.com, which is profit first, the number 4 restaurants.com. You can reach us through there. There's also all free downloaded. I'm always creating tools for restaurants to use, like menu costing, a scheduling app, a Spotify playlist, pre-service. Like there's all kinds of restaurant stuff on there that's free to download. So you can even just send them that website and be like, oh, there's some free stuff on here. And they can email me directly right through there. Those are probably the best ways to get started if you are, if you own a restaurant, if you know someone who owns a restaurant, or even if you're just thinking about it, because this might talk you out of it or not. Who knows?
I'm going to challenge listeners even to just go one further. You're bound to have a favorite restaurant, right? Everyone has a favorite restaurant they like to go, or one of their favorites. So what if this holiday season you said, hey, I'm going to just give a little gift that could transform this restaurant and the people in it, their families, and just the impact that could have? Do you think they might reward you back? Probably so. They probably would reward you back. I can't say for certain. I'm not going to guarantee that, but I think, good intentions, they make their way back. So
yeah,
that could be a great way to provide value and just experience the value of being an amplifier in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the traditions we have to end these little interviews is, if you would be so kind as to share something that you've learned on your journey that has helped you. It could be related to what you do as a profession, or it could just be something that you've learned in your life that could be helpful for others on their journey. Something that's just coming to you in this moment. Something you care to share.
Yeah. The same thing pops into my head when I'm asked this question. And I don't know if it's for everybody, but I am an ambitious person, I guess, right? So if you're an ambitious person, if you want to grow your business or businesses, this is for you. And it was something that I heard at a ProfitCon conference probably 8 or 9 years ago now. And I can't pronounce this guy's name. He was an electrician by trade, but now he owns like Warrior CEO or something. And he said on stage, as soon as you think about something that you want to do for your business, whatever it is you want to create, you want to do something in your business, the very next thought is, and who's going to do it? Because it should never be you. And I love this because I remember getting that aha moment when it sat with me, because at the time in my business, again, I said this 8 or 9 years ago, I was thinking like, okay, so as the owner, founder, CEO of my business, I should think it, I should create it, I should do it, everything was always on me. And I felt like I was just always the way, the world was on my shoulders all the time, not necessarily in a bad way, but there was just a lot. But if you change that simple mindset and you're thinking like, oh, I love that idea. Oh, I'm going to go do that. Yep. And who's going to take care of it? That's how you build a team. And that's how the team stays on track, where you keep your vision and your focus in line. And so that has actually changed everything for me, because I'm always creating and thinking of new things that I want to go do. But my next thought is, who's going to do it? And that's how I get people on the bus, how I build my team, and how I keep driving forward, is that it's never all about me, because I can't do everything.
A great reminder, and it's very important, like asking or reminding people that you're the captain of the ship. You gotta make sure that you remind yourself that. But really cool, Kasey. Thank you so much for taking the time to share some of your experience and some of the lessons that you've learned on your journey to help others on theirs. That is the true essence of being an amplifier. If you're tuned in, make sure that you are not just listening to things. We want to take new actions to achieve new results. So just think of one idea, one new action that you could take from here. Maybe it's sharing that book, Profit First for Restaurants, with your favorite restaurant owner. Take new actions, achieve new results. Until next time, keep on amplifying. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To show your support, take a moment to amplify this message by sharing it online. To connect with me or gain more business growth insights, visit www.growthamplifiers.com. Thank you for your support.